This week, the Michigan Department of Corrections surpassed 120 prisoner deaths.
A hotbed for COVID-19, the prison system is trying to bring down cases by freeing up space and sending home some parolee eligible inmates. But one group of prisoners remains in limbo, unsure if they can come home or not: juvenile lifers.
7 investigator Heather CATALLO has more on the future of these young people.
In 2012, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled it's unconstitutional to sentence a juvenile to mandatory life without parole. Here in Michigan, hundreds of juvenile lifers are still waiting to be released, and during the pandemic, that can be potentially deadly. In 2018, Jose Burgos got a second chance at regular life. Suddenly, 3 decades of daydreams in prison could become a reality.
What does it feel like to go out to dinner with a girlfriend? What does it feel like to own your own car? What does it feel like to have your own place?
When Burgos was only 16 years old, he was sentenced to life in prison for killing someone during a botched drug deal.
I went from junior high school into the prison system.
As one of Michigan's 354 juvenile lifers, the now 45-year-old got that second chance thanks to a ruling by the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices said it was unconstitutional to sentence anyone under the age of 18 to life in prison, except for the rare case where a youth was deemed irreparably corrupt.
No, I don't think the Supreme Court could have emphasized it any more, that this is really only reserved for the rarest of circumstances.
Despite that ruling, Burgos' release in 2018 was, in fact, the rarity. The following year, more than half of Michigan's juvenile lifers were still waiting to go before a judge to get resentenced. Then, COVID-19 made the process even slower.
Now you're in a position where, what was a presumptively unconstitutional life sentence runs the risk of being a categorically unconstitutional death sentence.
In April, William Garrison, a juvenile lifer in prison for 44 years, died from COVID-19.
They waited so long, but they've had this hope of coming home and having some type of life, and then now this whole COVID situation.
Garrison had been weeks away from becoming eligible for parole when he died.
A lot of them were worried. A lot of them were worried that they're even going to make it to get resentenced.
Defense attorneys say COVID-19 has only underscored problems with the state's resentencing process.
Our starting point was so far from where it should have been when prosecutors sought life without parole again in almost 2/3 of our cases.
While prosecutors across the state have walked back some of their early filings, the original recommendations created tracks for the inmates. Those recommended for parole eligibility, known as a term of years, had their resentencing hearings first. Those recommended for continued life were left waiting for the courts to get through those other cases. Then COVID hit.
To say that our work has been impacted by COVID, that's an understatement.
Most courts throughout the state have been operating remotely. Wayne County hopes to start in-person hearings the second week of February. But getting inmates from the state prison system into a courtroom will be hard because of the pandemic.
There's the right to do it in person, but that right is not going to be held immediately.
Plans are still evolving, but Wayne County Circuit Court Chief Judge Timothy Kenny believes inmates will need to show 2 negative tests before being transferred for an in-person hearing. So should those hearings be held virtually instead? That's something prosecutors like Tom Dawson and defense attorneys like Tina Olson debate.
Our legal system is really set up on face-to-face encounters.
Normally, I wouldn't want to have such a serious resentencing hearing with a number of witnesses by video.
But as the coronavirus rips through the prison system, that's being rethought, especially since getting a case before a judge is the only way a parole determination can be made.
We're holding people far beyond the date where they continue to pose a threat to the community. It's costing us money. It's impacting families' lives. And even if that's not something that moves you, the Supreme Court has said that we shouldn't be doing it. And to my mind, we all have an obligation to follow those rulings.
Jose Burgos is currently working for the Michigan Appellate Defender's Office, helping juvenile lifers create reentry plans. In downtown Detroit, I'm Heather CATALLO, 7 Action News.